Hello and welcome to NewsNight. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. It's our pleasure to have you join us. During her most recent visit to the country, the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, says Nigeria will be helped by her organization working in partnership with others to improve on its infrastructure deficit and address some of the challenges contained therein. But how well or otherwise is the country really doing in terms of infrastructure? And are there overall objectives linking the various efforts together? NewsNight talks to the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amaechi. Honorable Minister, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Just a couple of days ago, well, actually maybe more than a couple of days ago, the Chinese State Councillor, Foreign Minister, was granted an audience by Mr. President. And they both talked about the role the Chinese are playing in infrastructure development in Nigeria. Of course, this is part of a broader thing that China is doing across the continent. But could you just give us an idea of how deeply involved the Chinese are with some of our infrastructure projects, particularly the ones that are under your ministry?
Well, okay. Well, it's good you narrowed it down because I wouldn't know what they're doing in Ministry of Works or what they're doing in Ministry of Health. But in Ministry of Transport, we have basically about 2 loan facilities that they have approved. We borrowed $500 million under President Goodluck Jonathan for the Kaduna-Abuja rail line. That rail line took us about $1 billion. So we literally had to cough out the remaining money. When we came, part of the project was abandoned for the inability of government to produce the counterpart funding. So what the president did was just to release the counterpart funding and money for the extra work, the additional work that we needed to do. And then we completed it and then had to buy the locomotives and coaches to enable us to commence commercial activities. So for the one of Kaduna-Abuja, they lent $500 million. They also lent us about $1.4 billion for Lagos-Ibadan, while the federal government had to cover about $200 million to make it 1.6. But at the end of the day, the project is taking us about $2 billion. So the federal government is coughing out more than just $200 million. We're bringing out about $700 million because we had to extend to the seaport in Apapa.
Which was not part of the original
contract.
Design.
No, it wasn't part of the original contract. It's just that when we came, we said the concept of the modernization by Obasanjo was more of a rail transportation, passenger-going rail transportation. But rail is relevant to the economy more than just carrying passengers. And for it to be relevant, you have to actually take it to the seaport where cargoes are discharged and either exported or imported into the country. So we had to take about 45 kilometers rail from Ebute Metta into Apapa Seaport. All that will bring everything together to about $2 billion. So they lent us, there we are giving about 1.4, and there's an additional one they're going to bring because they're asking us to also connect Tinkan Island Seaport to Apapa. That will be some extra costs, which we may have to borrow from them. Beyond that, nothing. So if you look at the whole total cost, it's about $2.5 to $2.6 billion that we have borrowed from China Exim Bank. That's Ministry of Transport.
Okay. Given this situation and the fact that these projects are gulping these huge sums of money, there are those, and I know I've asked you this before, but now that, for example, the Abuja-Kaduna rail line is in operation, it's being used very seriously by customers and so on, and even the Lagos-Ibadan, which has started all the test operations, is also being used by quite a lot of people. Do you think that the paradigm under which both projects, for example, were set up can make them allow us pay back what we owe the Chinese?
No. How much can you raise from the highest money we're making from the rail project from Abuja to Kaduna is 100 million after when you subtract the running cost. There were 100 million a month So in a year, you're talking about 1.2
2
billion
billion, yes,
naira.
naira.
Okay, how much is 1.2 billion naira? It's less than.
Less than $50 million. I'm not even sure it's up to.
How can $10
I'm not
million
sure it's.
dollars will be nearly 3 billion naira? You're not. It's not for. Maybe in the future. Maybe when it will contribute to the repayment if you say so. Yes, and that's the idea of setting up a separate fund for the running costs of the railway, so that we can begin to make our own contribution in the repayment scheme. Uh, the idea is at any point in time we're able to save up to $1 million. We ask Minister of Finance to transfer to China Exim Bank. Yeah, and as the year go by, the federal government is able to pay back, and we're also able to contribute to the repayment.
This is a very long-term plan because of the sums that are involved. But it also looks as if, because I know I've heard you say that there are other projects that also need to be done. Yeah, that also need to be done in order for it to make complete sense. I mean, if you have Abuja, Kaduna, you have Lagos, Ibadan, then Ibadan all the way to Kano is also sensible.
That's what makes sense.
Port Harcourt
Maiduguri.
to Maiduguri is also there. Now, if these ones cost this much and those ones will probably cost more, and the operation, because I've heard you say before that it's a social service essentially, but it may be able to pay its way, but not really pay its way to the point where you can return the money from its operations. How do you think those would work? I mean, if we are talking of Ibadan to Kano, I can only assume, I mean, taking the mathematical calculations, that it may cost multiples of the amounts that Lagos Ibadan would
Ibadan
cost.
to Kano is a single track. Is $5.3 billion.
So it's quite a lot.
It's huge, but if we start running efficiently, we should be able to, in a month, we should be able to generate hundreds of millions of naira, which would mean that in a month you can actually pay back close to $1 million every month, if Ministry of Finance will accept that, if they won't plow the money into budget expenditures. But if they agree with us, which is something once we start running Lagos Ibadan efficiently, I have to sit with the Minister for Finance to agree that if we hit $1 million any month, we should please pay back to China Exim Bank so that they will not harass us. In a year, you can actually pay between $5 and $10 million. That's from us, from the Ministry of Transport, different from what the Federal Ministry of Finance can pay back, or different from what the federal government can pay back.
Let's now switch to some of the other things, of course, still related. You talked just at the start now that when the concept of rejuvenating the railways was brought about, it talked mainly only about passenger traffic. That's
what I think is the concept, in the sense that most of the cargoes in Nigeria should come from the seaports.
Right.
It does not mean that there are no other cargoes that are not found around the seaport. There could be people who establish their companies around the track, the right of way, and who may want to transport from Kano to just Ebute Metta and then to Lagos market. But for those who import and export, the need to take all the rail lines to the seaport became necessary, and the president so directed.
If that also comes into the mix, that is freight transport now, which is probably a lot more commercial oriented.
It makes more money.
That could help the viability.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, that's when I say 100 million for Kaduna Abuja. By the time we start running Lagos Ibadan, we'll make more money. Not just for the passengers alone. We'll begin to convey cargo from the seaport up to Ibadan. And we can convey as much as 200,000 tons in a year. More than that, we can convey as much as 500,000 tons in a year if the cargoes are there, up to Ibadan. By the time we finish the construction of Ibadan to Kano, we can convey that 500,000 to 1 million tons of cargo in a year to Kano. We have the what do you call it?
The capacity?
We have the capacity. What's the capacity? The capacity is just that you have wagons and you have locomotives. So you put the cargo on top of the wagons, the locomotive takes it to Kano.
The lines that were in use before, of course, degenerated because of maintenance and other.
Maintenance.
Are you going to use those for any other purposes after these new ones are in operation?
We are waiting for people who would go into partnership with us to rehabilitate them. Then when we rehabilitate them, we'll put them to use. But currently it's in use currently, but again, it makes 17 to 20 kilometers per hour, which means if you're going to Kano, you should prepare for 2-3 days to go before you can get to Kano. But with the standard gauge, you can get to Kano in 7 to 8 hours.
Because, of course, it's much faster. All of this has been complicated by, the pace of movement on all of this has been complicated by COVID-19 and the fact that a lot of the equipment required, the personnel required, are stuck in different places. Tell us a bit about how difficult it has been now, particularly 2020, and what your projections are for 2021 about how this could impact the deadlines and the timelines for the completion of these projects.
It's a big problem. Whether we like it or not, we have to learn how to live and work with COVID. Because you're a Nigerian, you won't say, okay, President Buhari, you were interrupted by COVID, so we'll give you extra 1 year. If you do that, then we'll be glad to have an extra 1 year. Because 2020 was so bad for everybody. We literally could not work. But we're happy that we can say that beyond the stations, we can run the Lagos Ibadan, but you need the stations. Nigerians prefer terminals to safety. So we need to complete the stations. Are the stations ready? They are, but what about the furniture architecture? They're not there. So we need to be able to get the infrastructure, the financial infrastructure in place, and then get people to use the ticket that to be bought from the listing and access the listing through the proper channel than now that they're accessing it through the wrong channels. That's all that's remaining for us to complete. And you can see, I challenge anybody to tell me any building in Nigeria that is as iconic as the Bute Meta station. Any building in Nigeria, I didn't say any building in Lagos, which includes Lagos and Abuja, that is as iconic as the Bute Meta station. And I challenge you to go and take a look.
I have been there and I've taken a look. The only thing that came to my mind when I saw it would be, after those who put it up leave, maintenance is always our problem.
Well, within the period Buhari government is in power, and within the period that I'm serving as the Minister for Transportation, we will maintain it. Don't you see the Kaduna Abuja? We've done 2016 till now, and it's still running. The stones are still there, the ballast, but Nigerians call them stones. They're still there. Not like the narrow gauge that is, the ballast have disappeared. The thing is buried in the ground.
Right, yes.
Here, it run for 5 years. I will not complain. The only place we've had a complaint is locomotive. Once the locomotive goes by, they think it's the whole railway. The locomotives, we have had problem once or twice about the locomotives. But in terms of the rail track, we are on. I've requested my colleague in the cabinet to come forward with the money you need to do further maintenance on the track, because the rule requires that every year you must change 1/3 of the ballast. Ballast here are the stones.
Okay. But given the maintenance, because now you talk about maintenance, are there inbuilt, because I know that projects of this nature and of this size usually have built-in maintenance contracts.
It's not forever now. The one of, even though we renewed it, the one of Kaduna Abuja is expired several times. It will be more than 2 years maintenance. The rest, it should be you. So that's why you see the university comes to play. Because as you're teaching the children what railway technology is all about, you put them back into the system and they will take charge of all those maintenance things you're doing. Even the reason for trying to build a university is it will get to a point that you begin to construct your own railway. There's no magic about railway construction. It's just engineering. But
there are those, since you mentioned the university, there are those who are wondering, do you need, you have the university in Katsina, you have the one in Rivers.
Nubima. Put it properly. I don't know why people don't want to call the name of my village.
I'm trying to avoid being accused of leading you. Do you think that those institutions, the number of people they can produce can be absorbed by the system you are putting in place?
Oh, of course. The system needs, you know how many engineers that came from China? 700. 700. We don't have 700 students now studying. In fact, the people we send to China are just 150. Is it 150 or 300? 150. We are sending another 150 or 300 to Portugal to go and study. So they will do 4 years engineering courses, railway engineering, railway logistics, design. It's all sorts of things they will do. And they need 4 years. But every time you're still on your railway, so you'll be requiring engineers. By the time they come, they feel, oh, they just go into the system.
The issue of the sovereignty clause that brought you into some kind of controversy with the National Assembly, has that been resolved now? Because there were two things. The first was that, as you explained, so many people didn't understand what the sovereignty clause was about, and there were a number of people who were even outside of government who said, this is standard in many contracts like this. The second was that you pointed out, you said, by their very nature, those with whom you are doing business are the kinds that if you begin to make this kind of controversy around this thing, they're likely to pull back.
That's where we are. The loan for Ibadan to Kano is up to now, we've not gotten approval. And at the point that happened, we were just at the verge of getting approval. So they withdrew. So they're asking more questions. They want to. The two things I said at the meeting are happening now. There are other countries we have loan agreement with that we enter into arrangement to borrow money from. They don't usually ask for, because they trust you, so they expect that you will pay back. So they don't usually ask for immunity clause. The moment you brought this to the public, so you're giving China immunity clause, then you must also give us. You get the point? So the selfishness of those members who, I don't know what they're pursuing, have put the country into jeopardy. So now the other countries are asking for immunity clause in their own agreement. Then the other aspect that I say was that the Chinese may likely withdraw. And that's where we are. We're talking to them. The rest assured that we'll pay back. The fact that these members were investigating should not stop you from, they're doing their legitimate duties. It doesn't stop you from lending us the money. They're asking questions that we need to explain. We have explained. They promised to give us the loan, but at least it's held us back since June till now. We've done 7 months. If they had given us money in June, we would have gone far. We have started clearing by now. But imagine 7 months wasted because one or some few members of the House of Reps went to the public. Because whatever you do here is reported all over the world. So that's where we are. But if you want me to explain, I've explained it over and over, that what the immunity clause simply does is to say to you, look, in case you're not able to pay back, I want to be given the opportunity to take you to court or to arbitration as it is in the clause. So when I go to arbitration, don't come and waive immunity. I'm a sovereign nation. You can't take me to court. No, I want to have access to court. So what the immunity clause does is it gives you access to court. But in case we're not even able to pay back, whether you have immunity clause or not, there are things that the court will tell them, these are things you should go for. What the immunity clause even does for us as Nigerians, they say, okay, you can go for everything in case the court awards you anything, but you can't go for our diplomatic assets, because that's easiest for them. They just go to any country and seize your asset outside the country. So in the immunity clause, we say you can't go for diplomatic asset, you can't go for our military asset, you can't go for our oil assets. So what's remaining? Airport, railway, those are things you can go for. In case the court say, okay, we award you, because they must award something.
China if you breach the contract,
yes,
that is, you are unable to fulfill your own
yes. So China is not Nigeria. They can't say, oh, we're Nigeria, so let's leave you. So in case we're not able to pay, and they go to arbitration says, okay, you have won, they are supposed to pay you back. Since they're not able to pay you back, take the railway stations, but they won't go for an NPC, they won't go for LNG, because those are things we have excluded in the immunity clause. You get the point?
I do.
So what are Nigerian? That's why it's like the shout about Kano-Maradi. I said, my wife is Igbo. She's not from Maradi. There is nothing that can make me. The worst, if it's okay, I'm just serving the interest of the North. Let's assume that's what the argument you make. The worst I can do is stop at Jibia, which is the border. To even get to Maradi, I had to travel to Niger Republic to even beg them. They're not bringing their money, it's our money, but I'm begging them to allow me access into Maradi.
Why is it so important to go to Maradi?
Okay, it's simple. Currently, Niger Republic is exporting through Benin Republic. All the countries that are landlocked in the West African region are exporting to Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, Ivory Coast.
Not Nigeria.
Not Nigeria. Why are they not exporting through Nigeria? Oh, your roads are bad. So the railway takes care of that. Oh, customs are difficult. They will charge us things that are not what we are charged in Benin Republic. Immigration does not allow us. Even when we pass all this, police checkpoints on the road, custom checkpoints on the road, immigration checkpoints on the road. Then communities have their own checkpoints on the road. Armed robbers attack us on the road. So we prefer to go where it is safe and cheaper to do business. So all we're saying to you is, oh, okay. So we come to Maradi, we build offices, we build a warehouse. You put your thing in the warehouse, you deal with customs at Maradi, deal with immigration at Maradi, deal with police and whatever you need to check for the goods to go. Once we put the good on top the wagon, straight to Lagos. When it gets to Lagos, straight to the ship. Because the things you would have done in Lagos, we have done in Maradi. So it makes it cheaper and easier for them to do business. No community will stop the train and say, where are those things from Niger, or for instance, or where are those things from, say, Chad that want to use Lagos?
Right.
It's just, once you finish at Maradi, you put it on the wagon, you appear at Lagos, you board the ship, and off you go. Or if you're importing from outside the country, and they want to go to, you are from Niger or Chad, as soon as you finish at the Lagos seaport, straight, the next place you see your goods is at Maradi. So what we're doing is to grow Nigerian business and Nigerian economy. Those people will come, let's assume the ship is not leaving that day, they will sleep in Lagos, so they pay for hotel, they buy food, they do business, so you're growing the economy. So what are people complaining about?
This is a very expensive project, though.
1.9 billion?
Yes.
How much is to Maradi? So you stop at Jibia, Maradi is just 20 kilometers. So Maradi won't be up to $200 million. So what's expensive about
The
that?
argument of those who are talking about it is that $200 million could have been used, for example,
To do what?
to complete the East-West Highway.
China is not lending you money for, okay, it's not even China, it's ECA, that's European Union. They're not lending the money for road now. They will probably not lend you the money for road. But if you complete, if you took $200 million to complete whatever road you want to complete, and you lose the kind of business that will generate more than $200 million, which one would you prefer?
But on balance, don't you, as Honorable Minister, think that possibly the East-West Road also generates that kind of revenue because it's within the country?
What revenue does it generate?
You're talking, I mean, if I understand the concept properly, the East-West Road kicks off in Lagos and goes all the way to...
It doesn't kick off from Lagos. It kicks off from Warri.
Fine.
Warri to Calabar.
Which is where we have all
Don't
refineries.
Don't forget that the one from Uyo, not Uyo, this place in Akwa Ibom to Calabar has not been constructed. In fact, they brought it in the cabinet. The minister was saying about 400 billion naira or so to construct it. It was all bridges. But that's even not the issue. The issue is that as much as East-West Road is economically relevant to the country and to the South-South, it's also important to point out that after some years, maybe 10 years, it will break down.
Why do you say that?
Don't you see why? Have you driven on it? It goes bad. The tonnage on the road is higher most times than the road. That the only saving grace for East-West Road will be if we construct the Lagos-Calabar railway, which will be able to convey the volume of wet cargo that you have to carry on that list. So you can't ignore the business. We're not even talking about the local economy. We're not talking about the business that it will generate between Jibia and Kano and Lagos. We're talking about business it will generate among nations that are landlocked that you can encourage to use
those facilities.
They may generate more than $200 million 10 times.
Let me ask you about the framework for this. There's the issue about decentralization and the repeal of the Railway Act of 1995 to allow for independent centers to generate the kind of activity you've just talked about now and bring in their own ideas about how to make their own sectors more viable. I'm talking about the various corridors that will now be established when this program you've described is complete. I mean, if you're coming from Maradi through Jibia to Kano and then on to Lagos, you're going to pass through a lot of places. If you're going from Lagos to Calabar, or if you're going from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, I mean, these are various corridors which traverse a lot of places. And that therefore, if you are able to decentralize it in such a way that in each cluster or in each hub, the people there are able to, put up the kind of things that are unique to those areas and which can generate additional business. Do you buy into this?
How? What additional business will you generate? See, I completely agree that there's a need to review or reenact the Railway Act because it inhibits the independence of the railway from doing a lot of business investments. For instance, it does not give you power to concession a lot of things. The monopoly is unnecessary. It's not about what you just said about, it's about unnecessary monopoly. You should allow state governments that have money to build rail lines to build their rail lines.
But isn't that about security also?
Security how?
That is that you can't have too many people dealing with things that have to do with movement around.
Railway in most countries are done by local government.
Yeah, but Nigeria's situation is different.
Why we are not human beings?
We are human beings.
People are human beings. We are then different. You see, even airports. The airport who owns the airport in Atlanta? It's a local government, not state. But in Nigeria, we want the federal government to own everything, to do everything.
Yes, maybe that is because the federal government seems to be, because we see what's happening with most of the state governments. Most of the things that are owned by the states are not properly maintained.
So the problem you have is that you must hold your government to account.
People basically don't trust administrations at that level.
Well, I'll try not to discuss government because I was once a governor. But you must hold your government to
account. It's part of the reason why I'm raising it with you.
No, you must hold your government to account. Governors are also inhibited from doing quite a lot of things.
By the law, in some cases.
Yes, in some cases. For instance, the governor of Kano is interested in doing the intra-city rail line. But he first had to come to the federal government to get
approval,
a franchise to be able to do that. In a similar manner, he can't even borrow money.
Without federal government approval.
Exactly.
Aren't these checks and balances?
Okay, well, that's why I don't want to discuss that. Because the argument, at the federal level, the argument that was put forward by the then Minister for Finance is that the actions of state government also impact on the economy. So if not properly managed, you can give them that freedom, but still get them into your economic management team so that they don't take action that destroys the economy. But to inhibit their capacity to be able to borrow money to function is a bit outrageous.
Moving on to waterways, which is virtually, I mean, we're taking a look at the railways now, but the waterways, for a long time, nobody seemed to be talking about those. And yet, Nigeria is full of pathways of water. And I remember you talking about this. I remember what happened in the case of Lagos, which, of course, you described then as misinterpretation of what the position of the federal government was vis-a-vis the state. What you were doing was enforcing the law about territorial waters. Now, you're going to have this same kind of problem with some other governments who have probably taken a look at the fact that the federal government is not showing any interest or was not showing any interest, but is now suddenly showing interest. Is that because, as I've heard you say once or twice, the federal government is also taking a look at the issue of dredging to make some of those ports that have hitherto been abandoned viable or usable? Is that the thinking here?
There's no port, okay, apart from Calabar and possibly Warri, where the silting is too bad and they're not put into use as much as they should be. The rest ports are functioning. It's just that you don't have. Nigerians must take into cognizance this fact. We are not producing. So what are the ports going to do for you? Buy things from even Ghana and bring down.
Yes, because some of the arguments,
You
because when
accept
you ask
that?
the question,
You accept that?
let me
The
let me
reason why
provide some of what they
you
say.
have crime, all of you heap it on the federal government. The reason why you have crime in the country is that the economy is not productive, so nobody is working.
Yes, but if for example,
If everybody is working, there's no need for crime because you have a source of livelihood. The reason why there is crime is, okay, when we came in, we said, oh, we'll take care of Boko Haram. And we did. But as we were taking care of Boko Haram, we did not want the country then that the oil price had fallen to $28 per barrel. That's what happened when we came. If oil price had fallen to $28 per barrel, it means that the capacity of the federal government to be able to fuel the economy has reduced drastically. The implication is that there will be unemployment, the economy will not grow at the level it was growing before, which was about 5 to 6%. Now you have 1%, sometimes 2%, and all that. And that simply will impact on the pockets of Nigerians and their ability to be able to put food on their table. If that is what is going to happen, people will resort to crime. So when you talk about seaport, those infrastructures are in place, but how many Nigerians are producing? Why are they not producing? They're not producing because everybody became a contractor to an NPC and a contractor to the River State, or to federal government, the state government, and all that. Nobody, even those who make that money, if they went into production, establishing industries, establishing manufacturing outfits, and all that, going into agriculture, they will then create employment for everybody and make more money for themselves. But no, just like politicians. When you hear politician A has left politician B, it's because his politician B is out of government and his party did not win. So he goes to another politician C who has won. Because for the politician, he must be in power until he dies. Because that's the only source of livelihood. So politics is no longer an avenue for which people create governance opportunities and perform in such a manner that people are able to benefit from government. Politics becomes an agency for employment and payment of salaries. And the salaries are huge.
I'm going to come back to this point, but I want to also touch on what you just said now. Some people listening to you who know you will look at you and wonder how could it be you who would be saying this? Because from 1999 to date, you have been in government.
You know,
and you have moved party as well.
I moved party on principles. I did. I am ready to engage you on that argument any time. I did want the federal government. Look, things are not going the way I expect them to go. The way I had a meeting with the president and said, these are things I expect I should be able to do. Let's challenge what I have done. As speaker, I turned out to be one of the best speakers this country has ever produced. If nothing else, USAID tried to make me to meet with Clinton, if not for ethnic politics, because they saw my assembly as one of the best that could come out of the third world countries. And they put me up to meet with Clinton. When I became governor, I created employment. I had ideas. I need to focus on agriculture, so I established farms. Songhai Farm, at the time I left, was the biggest Songhai farm that you had. We had over 300 to 400 hectares of land. We created employment. We created hostels, hotel facilities inside so that people can come there and do research, see what we have. We created hostels for people who want to engage into farming. We train them, we discharge them, we give them money to go and start creating employment. We created a banana farm by entering into a partnership with a Mexican company that started employing 500 persons per day, even though it's no longer there. We get into a partnership with an Israeli company. We paid our own 3 billion naira to go into farm. They've stopped them to go into.
They stopped this?
All these things have been stopped.
In Rivers State?
In Rivers, that's what I'm saying. Then created that, going into partnership with an Israeli company to create what they call in Israel, is it kubik or kubit, whatever they call it?
Yeah, the kibbutz.
Yeah, okay. Then in Nigeria, what people now refer out to...
Ruga.
And the concept of Ruga, I was among those who supported it. What's Ruga? We had it in Rivers State. We had started developing it before we got distracted by the federal government, and then we left government. But the people were there. What was it? At that Rivers State level, we had total distance of about 3,000 to 10,000 hectares of land. We were to put 1,000 persons in that place, give them accommodation, market, school for their children, church, everything they need. Give them their own specific land, give them money to go and farm. So it becomes a village for them to live and grow and harvest and sell. That was what Ruga was about now. But no, they will take herdsmen here and there. And I said, if I was a governor, okay, no herdsman, if you don't want, or I can do ranches there and ask rivers people to farm or deal with animal husbandry. But you see, to be a president of Nigeria, you must make a decision and stand by your decision. When it turns out to be good, people will praise you after you've left office. You don't have to be a popular man while you're in office. And I think the president is also that is someone who takes that kind of stand. But I don't quite agree with the minister for abandoning Ruga. I would have abandoned Ruga if I was Minister for Agriculture. But the point one is making is such things that create employment. When you create employment, I don't know how old you are. There was a period in Nigeria you could drive from Port Harcourt to Kano. Nobody would stop you. Police won't stop you. Criminals won't stop you. Have you forgotten that? I served in Abuja.
That's true.
As a student leader, we went for a meeting in Kano. And I hit, what do they call this, 911, or what do they call it, in the night. And I arrived Port Harcourt in the morning to write my exams. No criminal, no police, nothing. But now you just can't do that.
No,
the reason is unemployment. The rich has put all the money in their pocket, denying the poor. And when I was saying that as a governor, they thought I was joking. When I say to people that if you don't create a legitimate economy for Nigerians, they will create for them illegitimate economy. Those who have connived and seized the legitimate economy will not be able to drive on the road because that's the avenue for the illegitimate economy. What is illegitimate economy? Kidnapping. Even you can't traverse Lagos as freely as you used to do before. Before, growing up in Port Harcourt, just enter your car by 10 p.m. You're looking for party. Where is the sound coming? And there was so much sound. Everywhere you see free party. Now, nobody can. By 6 p.m., rich men are in their houses sleeping with their children. We the poor are on the street looking for them.
We the poor?
Of course.
I doubt that people will agree with
That's
you.
their business. That's their business. And sometimes it's exciting when people talk about insecurity. They should remember that this insecurity is a product of mismanagement of our resources. If those resources were kept in place and were utilized and Nigeria was turned into a productive economy, there will be no need, there will be no use for these criminals. Because they will either be in school, they'll have gone to school, and by now they'll be working. But where they're not working, because you've seized their money, everybody became a big man. In 1 week, you are a billionaire just for knowing somebody in an NPC, or for knowing somebody at the federal government, or for knowing somebody at the state government. Anyway.
The original question I asked, which led us down this line, was that when we were talking about the waterways and dredging. There are those who have made the argument, I mean, the industrial hub, what you talked about, when you talked about people creating employment, the industrial hubs, there's one in Aba, there's Onitsha, and so on, traders, people who import and sell things and so on.
Why can't they make those things in Nigeria?
No, but even the raw materials to be able to put together those things have to come from somewhere.
Yes.
And
the raw materials exist here.
Currently, no, the argument is this, that at least until they do that, if, for example, they had access to Warri Port, or they had access, yes.
The Port Harcourt is functioning.
But it can't do the kind of traffic that Tinkan Island or Apapa is
doing. No, it can't. The only reason why people are not going to Port Harcourt is because of the crime in the water. It has capacity to carry any. In fact, it's even deeper than Apapa Seaport.
But the crime you talked about, the last time I spoke to you, you mentioned the fact that the federal government have put in place this security umbrella.
Yes, but we are being fought by.
You can see everything that is happening.
We are being up to now, since 2016, we are not able to take up because people who make money out of insecurity have fought us. They petition me to EFCC, they petition me to the president, and FIU, accusing me of. So the business is. You saw us, me and the chief of and the minister for defense.
Yes.
Recently. We went on to inspect those. They've arrived the country. We can't install because some Nigerians are making money. Didn't you see the fight between MP and OMSL? What's OMSL doing? Provide 3 boats for Navy, and that's all. And so we will not allow these Israelis install the equipment and carry out this responsibility. So we will suffer as a country because OMSL is making $2,500 per vessel that gets into the country, into Lagos, and $1,500 after the first day. So you see, so Nigerians benefit from the insecurity. Yeah, well, you're right when you say some, but when I say Nigerians, I mean those people are not Biafrans, they are Nigerians. Now, the only place they are complaining is not those insecurity in the water, it's because the criminals, those people we bred them. The rich brain them by denying them their right to exist and not allowing them to sleep at night. I'm not saying we've done enough to curb the insecurity, but I'm saying that the insecurity is not just armed robbery or kidnapping and the police. It takes much more than that. To be able to curb insecurity, you must deal with the issue of hunger. You must deal with the issue of the growth of the economy. Because until you create a channel by which these people you call criminals are able to fend for themselves, they will continue to deal with the illegitimate economy. That's the point I'm making. When it comes to the issue of dredging, I believe that Barrow's river port, Lokoja river port, can only function on two grounds. You must dredge enough for barges to function. And either Warri Seaport or Port Harcourt Seaport must be active to convey goods, to make those barges convey goods from either Port Harcourt or Warri to River Niger that has been dredged and then to Barrow. That's how to put them to use.
Is there any plan to do that?
We've done the capital dredging, but we've not done the maintenance dredging. We'll have to be able to do the maintenance dredging. But we've completed the river port in Barrow. We'll need to complete the river port in Lokoja, and then be able to get government to do the maintenance dredging so that barges can go to, because no matter how much you dredge the River Niger, I doubt if you can go above 2.5 to 3.5 meters draft.
As we're beginning to wind this down, I want to take you home to your people. Because you're one of, if not the most prominent son
of where?
Of the Niger Delta in government.
Of my village.
Well, also possibly perhaps your village as well. And
my village has two governors. I'll produce two governors. So let's not hear myself. So I don't see why you should say I'm one of the most prominent. Okay, but go ahead.
I'm sure those who are listening know why I say that.
Okay.
The key thing is that area is, depending on how you describe it, is teetering on the edge. Because that is an area where a lot of oil, a lot of wealth of the country comes from. And yet there's also quite a significant amount of deprivation, the poverty, hunger, and so on that you mentioned, not to talk about the environmental problems and all of that. In 2009, the late President Yaradua put in place the amnesty program to, try to resolve some of the things that had become really problematic about the Niger Delta. More than 10 years later, we still have the amnesty program. Yes, our oil production has not been too adversely affected the way it was back then. But as someone in government, I spoke to one of your colleagues a while back who said to me, the amnesty program was not conceived to be endless. It was supposed to be for a defined period, it was supposed to end, and then people were supposed to carry it on. But that it seems as if it has generated an industry on its own, and again, there are now vested interests in that industry. So the question is this, going forward and looking at it, because...
Who holds that view? Which of my
one of your colleagues.
Yes. Which of my colleagues? It must be a public view.
Yes, it is.
Who is that?
The Minister of State for Petroleum.
Oh, okay.
Who is also incidentally a Niger Delta.
He opposed me when I said that the way to go is not by amnesty.
Well, maybe he has come around to your view now.
What I predicted by that time is what is going on now. What the people need is the ability to create employment. That's what the people need. People need to put food on their table. The people need to know that the environmental conditions that exist in Niger Delta should not continue to exist. They need to know that you must go by global standard in oil production. They need to know that they will have benefits. But those benefits, there are two arguments to the benefits. There are those who say that huge amount of money has been sent to Niger Delta and the developments are not commensurate to the amount of money that's been sent. There are those who make that argument. Correct. But both the federal government and the Niger Delta must hold their government accountable in the resources that come to Niger Delta so that we can develop Niger Delta. Now, what are the issues of development? Most governors think that if you construct road, you're finished. So they call people who have constructed road. What about primary schools? What about secondary school? What about human capital development? When we were there as governors, we constructed those roads. We didn't call anybody to come and commission them because even my son, if you make him a governor, he can construct a road. What it takes to construct a road is to pay a contractor to go and construct a road. And there's an engineer in the state government that will do design with the contractor. But what is a bit more difficult is human capital development. Because if you put the Niger Delta people into human capital development and create opportunities for them when they come back to be able to function, then you reduce crime, then you reduce agitation. But currently, that's not what's going on. So road is not an issue. You have to deal with power. When we were there, we had scholarship program for the poor to go overseas and study. We had scholarship program for the poor in secondary schools. We declared primary schools and secondary schools free. But you see, the more you send people to acquire education, the better for the economy. The better for you to grow the technology. For Christ's sake, what's all this story about America, China? Technology. What is technology? Ideas. Where do ideas come from? Education. That's where it comes from. Now, if therefore we deal with human capital development, industrial development, power, I'm not against road, including road, then as you create this infrastructure, you create employment opportunities. So, yes, there's poverty in the Niger Delta. There's poverty in the north. There's poverty in the southwest. Government must carry out a comprehensive program. That was why I opposed amnesty. It wasn't as if people thought I was opposing amnesty because I want Niger Delta youths to be punished. Yes, I agree that those who commit crime must be punished. I've always said that. But I also believed that instead of all this money we give out, we should put physical infrastructure on ground that grows the economy of the place.
Honorable Minister, thank you so much for this time.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you. That's today's episode of NewsNight. Thanks for watching. We would like to know what you think of the issues raised during this conversation. Our social media handles are right there on your screen. You can also listen to this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast. Visit our website, channelstv.com/podcast. I'm Ladi Akiridoluale. Goodbye.